This is Lynn. Hello, everyone. We had some technical difficulties, but we are live. We're going to be doing some live, love, laugh, let go out loud. And I have a special guest today. He's been my friend over 20 years. He's served our country well, and he's such a good guy. And I just feel like I just want to have him here and celebrate our friendship and some knowledge with you guys. So he'll be right here with me. Leonard Davis as his professional stuff, but I call him Lenny. So I'm going to do a little intro video and he'll be right here with me. Hey, we're back with Leonard Davis, but AKA Lenny, my friend.
Yeah, it's been a long time since you've called me Leonard. Thank you very much.
I just, I tell you, send me a little bio, and here I get all this Leonard stuff. I'm like, I don't know who he is, but I know my friend Lenny.
They say that's my government name. So,
well, Lenny, I want to thank you first for serving our country the way you have since I think you were born. And I just want to thank you for being here. And my show is about live, love, laugh, and let go out loud. And you've been there for some tough times in my life as well. And, I'm just so grateful for you. And my show is just about laughter, appreciating people that have been in my life that mean something to me. And you're definitely somebody that's always been in the background, but just knowing you're there means the world to me. So I just felt like I couldn't have this podcast, almost 30 shows, and not have you on here to be one of the people that have been supportive and that are caring and that do so much for the world and for me personally. I love you so much. So if you'll just introduce yourself a little bit, and we're just gonna laugh, roll, and have a good time.
well, good. Yeah. Well, as Linda said, my name's Lenny Davis, or Leonard Davis, if you don't know me. But I'm a retired special agent with the U.S. Customs and then Department of Homeland Security. I spent 31 years in law enforcement, and after I retired, if you can call that retired, I retired on a Friday and went to work for a military contractor the next Monday. Started training troops for getting them ready for Afghanistan and Iraq. I did that for a couple of years, and then I went to work as the investigator for the Motion Picture Association of America, doing their anti-piracy program here in Nevada. And then I did that for a year, and then I worked from 2008 to 2015, and I'm actually still on the roster, but although my schedule doesn't allow it, I'm a subject matter expert in the U.S. State Department's Global Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program. So I've been going all over the world training friendly foreign law enforcement and military in anti-terrorism tactics. And since 2015, I've been the owner of a private investigations, security, and training firm here in Las Vegas called SRT Special Services.
Well, Lenny, you're just an amazing freaking guy. Now, my brother was an MP in the Army as well, and he served in Nuremberg and all that stuff, overseas and stuff. I forget where he was stationed and stuff. He was out of McLennan. So, and where were you stationed out of?
My first duty station was Fort Hood, Texas. Okay. And then I went to the Lackland Air Force Base for nearly 6 months to be trained as a patrol and narcotics dog handler. And then I spent a year in South Korea as a narcotics dog handler, one of only 6 the U.S. Army had in country. And then when I returned, I was initially stationed at Presidio, San Francisco. And then my last 11 months in the service, I was tasked and deployed to a semi-active military base called Camp Parks out in Pleasanton, California, because they had built a federal prison there, and they had this inmate there named Patty Hearst. And so, with Patty's arrival at the prison, she brought people that wanted to come to see her, or try to get a glimpse of her at the prison, and they had to come onto the military base. And it was, like I said, it was semi-active. It was reserve training, and they didn't have any active duty military police, so they were having a lot of crime there, break-ins and theft. So I ran a three-man detail of active duty military police out there.
That's awesome. Like I said, that right there, Julie Roman, she's my brother's widow, and she's we're all into the military and service and stuff, and you know that. But I've got tons of random questions and stuff here. So let's just start with why did you choose to be a police officer?
Um,
Or did it pick you?
well, no, I have to say, Martin Milner and Kent McCord did a little show back in the 60s called Adam 12. And I wanted to push a black and white in LA so bad. And as I got older and I went to college, and then I realized, I did a year of college, and then I went, I'm not going to be old enough in 2 years when I get my associate's degree in law enforcement, to be a police officer in the state of California. So I was I attended a junior college in Stockton, California, and the Army recruiters came on board, and they came on board with some active duty military police from Presidio, and they were driving, instead of black and white, they were green and white. And I went, oh, I can go right now. So that's why I got into the law enforcement.
That's cool. And
Yeah.
and how has times changed over the years in law enforcement, would you say?
We could do days on that.
Yeah.
Basically, it evolved as I think society has evolved. But it was a different and a harder edge. I will admit it right away. It was a harder edge in law enforcement when I first came on board. I mean, we were, if somebody challenged you in a fight, I was instructed by my first training officers that, hey, if somebody is fighting you, you better, and you call for a backup, you better make sure somebody's going to the hospital besides you. So it was a different time. I know I could not do it today.
Yeah.
If I magically went back, I hate to admit this, 45 years ago, I don't think I could do it. It's just there's so many restrictions, and so much, especially in this last year of, defund the police, and if an officer shoots someone or has a use of force, it's, oh my God, he's instantly wrong. And
Yeah.
and people have freaked out. The Michael Brown case in Ferguson was a prime example. There was so much flying around in the media and people getting upset, and I kept telling people, wait till the investigation's done. Nobody's going to sweep it under the rug. If that officer had, violated policy or just shot Michael Brown down, like that was alleged, it will come out in the forensics. And of course, it came out in the forensics. Michael Brown tried to take his gun away from him, and that's why he fired.
Yeah.
That officer should have been back at work, but I also understand that with his commitment to everything, that he didn't want to cause any more problems with the police department. But he
Right.
did everything correctly.
Gotcha. Okay, so what are some of the things you can share that people have a misconception on when it comes to current events?
Well, are you talking in the law enforcement?
Just the fact that you are so knowledgeable and you have such a background, without us getting into any details of anything specific, but like what can advice or what can you share with people, like you know, like the example you just gave as far as, waiting for things to happen. What would you say, like, you always have your ear down to the ground and you still do. And so without we're trying to be evasive here, but the bottom line is what can you say to people as far as without telling everything that you
Right,
know,
right. Well,
you know.
I can tell you one thing that no matter what comes out initially in the media, um, you need to sit and wait. There's nobody. I will tell you, there's not. It drives me crazy when I hear that. Oh well, the government's going to try and cover that up. No, the government's not going to try and cover that up. I know right now in law enforcement, I mean, it's about as transparent an age as you're ever going to see. Um, but everyone is I guess everybody thinks because of the media, and I mean media, not only news, but I'm also talking about films and television, everything. There's a saying that, like you watch CSI Vegas, and like 47 minutes they've done all of this collection, the evidence collection and all of this, and now they solved the crime in 47 minutes. Well, people seriously still think that you could do that,
Yeah.
and that you can do that in the real world. And I tell people it takes time. We had October 1st, 2017, we had the worst mass shooting in US history here by a maniac in a hotel. And people were like, the conspiracy, there was more tinfoil hats being made than I'd ever seen in my life. I got interviewed by CBS News about it because of, them and National Public Radio, and even had a French television crew come here and interview me. And I told him, I said, it's going to take months to go through all the evidence, because this psychotic madman who bought the guns legally, he did everything. He didn't do anything illegal until the moment he fired those weapons. And you're not going to stop, gun laws are not going to stop a psycho. You magically figure out who's truly insane and who's not. But it took months to process the evidence. Like I told everybody, I said, this guy had thousands of rounds of ammunition loaded up in magazines. Every single round had to be taken out in a forensic environment, had to be fingerprinted. The fingerprints had to be lifted. They had to be matched. So there was this mountain of evidence that they had to go through. And I mean, there's still to this day people going, oh, there were other shooters and this couldn't happen. And I was like, wow, guys, just take a breath, step back, and let the law enforcement professionals. I mean, you had hundreds of officers from Metro here, and doing investigation, and state and local and federal agencies, the FBI and ATF, you name it, everybody got into it. And
And you got called too, right?
oh, I got called many times about, well, what are your opinions about it? And I go, well, I'm not going to make an opinion about it other than the fact that, yeah, the guy was a nut. And someone asked me, I was interviewed by an attorney that was going to be part of the lawsuit. And he said, well, what do you think about this person's ability to shoot people from 400 yards away? And I said, hey, look, this guy could have caused a lot more damage if he'd have been trained. And he used those bump stocks, which are nothing more than something to empty a magazine in and simulate a machine gun. And he'd have done better if he was trained and had, just
Right.
worked normal rifle. But everybody was crazy about it. So that's my biggest thing, I think, anymore, is to tell people, wait till the end of the investigation. Don't let we seem to have become an emotional society that
Mhm.
our raw initial instinct seems to be the only thing that we go on.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so I'm going to skip to this place real quick and say, what are some of the places you've served that have changed your life and the way you see things? And I asked this question because I've been blessed to be your friend since, Facebook started. We were on Facebook, and I've seen some really cool places you've been, and I've seen, the change in you over the years on some of these.
Well, I got old.
Shut up. We all do that.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's no getting out of this alive. That's for sure. Uh,
Right?
I think it was one of the things. I grew up in a little town called Murphy's, California, up in the Sierra Nevada foothills. I loved it. I still love Murphy's. I wouldn't live there because it's in the People's Republic of California. But it's still a beautiful place. They've really done well with it, wineries and that kind of thing. It was cattle ranching and logging when I grew up there, but I got out of that, and the first place I went overseas was Korea, and I kind of made a point of immersing myself in as much of the culture anywhere I go. Um, I loved South Korea at that time. It was a much different South Korea than it is now. Um, really dangerous, but as far as the potential back and forth, I mean, there were incidents across the DMZ, when I was there and before I got there, and it was a lot less stable than it is now. But I immersed myself in the culture, and that was one of the things that I always kind of try to pride myself. And then when I went into several times, while I was a special agent with Customs and DHS, I've been to Mexico, been to Colombia, been to places like that. And I always tried to, understand the culture and kind of, glean anything I can from it. And then in 2008, when I started in the Global Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program for the Department of State, the first place I went was Pakistan, because they wanted me to be this subject matter expert in anti-terrorism, which I have some background in that, obviously. And um, I stayed there for 2 weeks, and I enjoyed it. I got It was the first time that I was in a truly Muslim country in a completely different environment. And I didn't at all, look down at anything, or I just tried to glean everything I could get from
But it
it.
changed you though.
Well, yeah, I mean, I checked out of the hotel. They took us to the Marriott hotel, and they said, don't leave the hotel without the armed security people. And we had an armed security every day when we drove back and forth to the training site. We were in an up armored vehicle, and the whole bit, and armed contractors and armed police with us. But I checked out of the hotel at 4:30 in the morning, left Pakistan about 2.5 hours later, and I landed in London about 14 hours later after a stop in Qatar. And then I did no big problems and boarded the plane for a 9 hour trip to Chicago. And when I got back got into Chicago, I called, and getting my voicemail, and everybody in the world thought I was killed, because about 14 hours after I left the hotel, a suicide bomber drove a 5,000-pound truck bomb into the hotel, killed 50, wounded about 250. And it was really kind of chilling to me, because I was that morning, sitting in the lobby with they had these great big wingback chairs, and we are sitting there waiting for the security detail to get there to take us to the airport. I get back here to Vegas the next day, 40 hours later, and here's the newspaper. And one of the pictures is one of the students that I had just taught was down in the bomb crater picking up evidence. And as I looked at images on the internet, I found the chair I was sitting in. Of course, it was knocked over and shredded by glass. So, it always it wasn't super close, but it was close enough to kind of go, oh, okay, this stuff is real.
I
You know,
worried about you a lot. That's all
Oh,
I could tell you. I'd be like, you're like, you're busy, but I have like, I'm gonna message you till I hear from you.
yeah, yeah. Well, and that's always, I had to make a deal after that trip with my daughters because they were beside themselves, and I had to make a deal with them that I would never go to any country where there was a stand at the end of it. So that's kind of a little joke in the family. No stands, I can go, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, you after serving and being everything you've done and it's like, it's just like you to just like and there's more with Lenny. There's always there's with
Well,
more.
I retired in 2005. I use the term retired pretty loosely.
I knew you before that too, so
Well, yeah, I mean, I never I ran a money laundering unit here my last 4 years with DH, well, customs, and then we became DHS, and I ran that and did a lot of undercover work there. I did a lot of undercover work over the years, and I loved that. I was pretty good at it. I've still got some people that are probably still PO'd at me, but it is what it is.
well, going there for my business, for my laundry business, I got to tell you, even though we didn't ever get to meet up all the time because you were busy, I was busy, but it always made me feel good that nobody better mess with me because I just have to say your name and I know I'm taken care of.
Uh, I,
You always
I
made sure to have my back covered, and I can't thank you enough for that.
oh,
Seriously.
that's what we do.
Yeah, I'm just blessed by your friendship, period. So I just had to say that. It's just okay, so here we go. What mistakes have you made along the way?
Oh, wow. Do we have a couple of 100 hours to talk about it?
I'll invite you back for different segments because everybody would love to hear
Yeah.
it.
Forgive forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Uh, it's been a million years since my last confession. No, I mean, mistakes I made. I didn't buy Apple stock the first time it came out. Let's see what else. Yeah, I could have bought. I should have bought land in northern Nevada and California when I had a chance many years ago.
uh,
Oh, I don't know. You make mistakes, and it's part of life. It's what you learn from.
yep.
Uh, I mean, I,
Well,
it's really tough.
I think I'm gonna go to this question now because we're in the laughter mode here. This one's funny. Here we go.
So, have you ever gotten yourself in a pickle? What kind of pickle would you say you gotten yourself into? That you learned the most valuable lesson ever.
What kind of pickle have you gotten into? What
Ah,
valuable lesson?
okay, I was
This is
like,
because
wow. Somebody
this is
just asked that. I had a pickle with a Santa Claus hat on it.
this is
What a
this has
pickle
been like this
again?
has
I'm
been like
sorry.
my signature thing to ask people because
Ah,
it's so much fun. What pickle have you been into? And I'm sure with law enforcement and everything, you've been in plenty, but some funny, fun ones.
well, geez, pickle is being in a pickle is such a broad term. Uh,
That's a good one though.
I mean, I've done some things that I mean, I spent 11 years on our special response teams for customs, our SWAT team. I did that. I ran a SWAT team off a UH-60 Blackhawk in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You can get in a lot of pickles in a lot of different ways. I mean,
And what about pickles? Like when you have we should go to this topic real quick with the pickle. When you have your pumpkin shooting times and all that fun stuff.
I
Like
mean,
you have planned some parties at the last minute, which I wish I would have just flown out there for that I
well,
have missed over the years. Just, your tequila stuff and all that fun
well,
stuff.
I mean, I've been pickled before. I never really in a pickle when I've done parties. I, I mean, I can tell you about a year and a half ago, I learned something that thank God I didn't know when I was younger about having a shot of tequila with a pickle juice back, which the chemistry neutralizes everything. And I could drink a whole lot more tequila, which I'm glad I didn't know that earlier in my life. And tequila didn't get as good as it is now back then because I would have probably not been here. I would have been pickled.
And speaking of pickle barrels, you had your own barrel of stuff made.
Uh,
How did that turn out?
it turned out great. I'm getting ready to do another batch. What Lynn, for you at home, what Lynn's referring to is there's a about 30 miles south of Las Vegas in this little town called Good Springs, is which is a bunch of people live there and one bar and restaurant called Pioneer Saloon. It's been there for since the late 1800s, early 1900s. I mean, its big claim to fame was that's where Clark Gable waited when his wife was killed in an airplane crash around World War II. But anyway, they started doing barrels for bourbon. So I decided that I was going to do something kind of as a more of an heirloom to the kids. And they have barrels out there. Mine is barrel number 86. And we have a tequila, or excuse me, a tequila uh, whiskey. And it was kind of a thing. My youngest daughter is very much like me, except on the outside, thank God. But she's right in your face. She will tell you exactly what she's thinking anytime she's thinking. And so my son-in-law, uh, my her sister or her brother-in-law, basically told her one day in an argument, "Hey, look, why don't you dial down the Davis?" So that's always been a thing in the family. So now it's dial up the Davis whiskey is what we produced.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's a pretty kick-ass bourbon, and we're getting ready to do probably batch number 2 here pretty quick.
Wow. And how long of a process was that?
It depends. I put it out in the barrel out there. I've learned a few things. I didn't realize that they didn't keep the barrels wet, so the alcohol has a tendency to seep, evaporate and seep out. So I didn't get as quite the yield that I got from that, but I've learned and I'm wiser now. So the next batch will be better.
I hope I get a little, and everybody knows I don't drink much, but I bet you just so I could take a little Q-tip swab and it.
Yeah, I'll get you a Vegas miniature. There you go.
There you go.
Sorry, I got
Oh,
coffee.
hey, no problem. So, what are your success habits? Because you're pretty successful in the things you do.
Let me tell you, I don't have a formula.
There you go.
I the grace of God, and I try to learn as much as I can about things, and I can tell you the Lenny from 40 years ago, that guy was psychotic. Uh, he
He
was
was like that about 20 years ago too, from what I
of that congresswoman. I really don't. But no, I mean, you change with age. You change. I mean, obviously, you things hurt. Um, you you get titanium installed and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I had a year and a half ago. But you change and you get smarter. I think there's wisdom there, and that comes with age, and it comes with a lot of throwing stuff on the wall and see what sticks and what doesn't.
Yeah, I know. Who would have thought, like back then to now, that I'd be podcasting and be a YouTuber, right?
Yeah,
Like,
there you go.
I
Jeez.
mean, you've seen me evolve over the years as
Oh,
well.
you certainly have.
Yeah, so it's either stay still and be run over or just, you
I,
know,
I have never been one. I don't. Somebody asked me the other day if I was going to retire, and I said, I just don't. I don't think I'll ever retire. Now I may at some point, now that I own the business, I may at some point, decide I've had enough of that and slow down a little bit. But um, I'm kind of not ready to do that.
I have a question here for you, I guess, from my sister-in-law. With the way that our country is going, do you see any hope? And what can we do as citizens to help or be prepared? That's a good question, Julie.
Wow. Yeah, it's a very good question, Julie. It's tough right now. I just was retained by the Amistad Project and the Thomas More Society to do an investigation into post-election shenanigans here in Nevada, and there was a lot of post-election shenanigans. I don't care what the media says, and of course, you can only investigate so much when you're doing a private investigation. And I've found a ton of stuff that, of course, the election commission here, Clark County, is not given any access to any investigators to go in and take a look at some of the things, the irregularities. I mean, one of the things that we saw was the fact that someone from between the 2018 election and the 2020 election went into, I don't know how many hundreds, if not thousands, of people's voting records, and they changed minute information in your registration, whether it was a misspelled your name slightly, or instead of a middle initial different or whatever.
It's funny you say that, because that happened here in Montana. My daughter and I mean, they've got a G for my middle initial, and I'm like, what the F is wrong with that? So yeah,
Well, and see what happened here was that when people showed up at the polls, because there was a lot of people that didn't do the mail-in ballots. I purposely was not going to mail my ballot in, and I did early voting in person, and they gave them my ID, and they ran it came up, and everything was correct, and I went and voted, except for the fact that when I did my signature, I purposely it didn't look anything like my signature. And they said, oh, I said, well, that's not my signature. And they said, well, the machine approved it, so go vote. But a lot of people would show up. There would be this small change in their data. And when they'd go and say, no, my middle initial is B, not C, they would change it. But the poll workers were not telling, in a lot of cases, and I mean, I spoke to a lot of people that this happened to, that they didn't tell them that once there was a change, that their vote became provisional.
I actually worked on the elections, and I know that you had to cross that out as a provisional, which of course is going to mess with the numbers, and those are half the time they're not even counted later.
Well, they weren't, unless you go in and what they did called cure your ballot. Mm-hmm. You had to go to the election department before election day and show them your ID that the correction was legal, and then they would take that provisional ballot into what they called cured status, and that would have counted. Any provisional vote that they did not cure was tossed out.
Yeah. So with this knowledge and stuff, again, what do you feel that we should be prepared for? Or
you should be prepared. I guess now president-elect, I doubt that he will serve his full term. So we are going to get, in my opinion, someone who, I mean, they want to turn everything in the rest of the country into California. And if you go to California, especially in the Bay Area, Los Angeles, it's a total toilet. They've turned this beautiful state through their policies into a mess, and they basically are going to spend the next 4 years trying to undo what President Trump's administration has done in the last 4 years, which I don't agree with everything President Trump says or does, but I can tell you between 2016 and now, things are a lot better in this country. And I think he was fighting for his presidency the entire time. Heaven forbid what we would have gotten done
without the distraction.
If they weren't trying to tear him down and would work.
Right. Okay, so let's go to this. What's the importance of Red Day? I want people to realize this, and I loved how every Friday you make sure to post that on your Facebook.
Well, Red Day is the acronym for Remember Everyone Deployed. I have several friends that are still in the military, mostly in special operations, that kind of thing. When I retired from DHS, I taught. I was getting military guys and women ready to go into Iraq and Afghanistan into a full blown war. And there's a lot of people every day that we seem to forget about, that are over there in harm's way, and in harm's way in a lot of places, even the places you don't think are you don't are not Iraq and Afghanistan, where there's a hot shooting war, in places where they are in a lot of danger, and they're doing that for us. And I just want to make sure everybody does that, remembers them. So that's why I do the red post on my Facebook account every Friday.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
what Friday is about. Remember, deployed.
I felt people needed to know that didn't understand that. So
Yeah.
So my sister-in-law says Trump needs to push, and I know that I was informed from a friend today that YouTube and Facebook are starting to pull things back. This video, I don't know. I'm going to save it, and we'll know what's going to happen here. But censoring, I think, is at its utmost. So I'm watching my words a little bit here.
Well, I totally understand that. I spent 30 days in the Facebook re-education camp known as Facebook jail, because I had made I don't get me wrong. I don't ever want to see. I've had enough violence in my life, and I'll be the last one to purport violence. And I talk a good game. Well, I ought to string him up. Well, do I really mean no? I'm going to go no, but I am so tired of Antifa, and so tired of the radical BLM movements and the defund the police. Those people, they don't care about this country, and they don't even care. BLM's a perfect example. BLM gets millions of dollars of donations every year, but have they ever opened a food bank anywhere in a Black community? Have they ever done an education program, used any of that money for that? No, they haven't. They're using it for their radical agenda. And Antifa, I'm sorry, if you go to a protest and you have to wear a mask, you're a crook, you're a thug, and you should be dealt with that way. And
I love you.
I made the statement on a friend of mine's account, what I thought should be done when you see Antifa, and Facebook decided in about 10 seconds that I probably shouldn't be, like, I needed to go to the re-education camp for the first time. So I went there. I've been re-educated. Chairman Zuckerberg, my new God, and all hail me. Anybody out there, she knows me well enough to know that I'm out of work. I was an out of work comedian when I became a cop. So
I love you so much.
It's just ridiculous about the of.
Let's go to this question. Which of your personality traits has been the most useful?
Say again.
Which of your personality traits have been the most useful?
Oh my God. I think probably my sense of humor, because I have seen some pretty dark crap in my life, in my job. I've seen the inhumanity man has it for its fellow man. And if you don't have dark humor, you probably would lose your mind. And I'll tell you, if anybody doesn't believe that police officers, just like soldiers, suffer PTSD, they are seriously, they need to be re-educated, because it's terrible. And you see the symptoms of it in the, law enforcement has a really high rate of divorce. There's a lot of alcohol. Sometimes there's alcohol abuse, and there's a lot of suicide. um, and it's unfortunate, because it's only been about the last, I'd say 10 or 12 years that, I mean, there's been before that, but it's really been accepted by police officers to say, hey, I need to talk to somebody. And because prior to that, oh my God, when I first came into this business, if I said, oh gee, I need to talk to somebody because I
You're
shot
pulling
some,
your guns and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
You're
you'd be,
nuts. You're nuts.
yeah,
You're not human. You're totally messed up, wasn't
yeah,
accepted. Well, because I was going to be a New York State cop, and I'll tell you what, it just my ex-husband didn't like that. I mean, but he called the police to say I was shaking my kid. I end up in the psych ward, and I'm like, listen, I've gone through all these police screening. I wouldn't have been accepted for the academy if I didn't, if I didn't have my head on right. But it was the craziest thing ever. It's like, what the heck?
yeah. I went to undercover school, and at our national academy in Fletsy at Glencoe, Georgia, and I went to a 3-week undercover school. And one of the things they did there was a psych eval. And I mean, you do these like 4-hour written tests answering these questions. And then, you sit down with guys who actually got doctor at the
Oh
start.
yeah.
And, there was a lot of us that kind of went, I wonder if there's going to be somebody there with a white coat to take us away.
Right. Yeah.
They're going, oh, hey, this guy's way too wacky for that.
Albany, the police academy thing, man, they put you through the ringer. I'm like, what's crazy is just being in this marriage. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like,
I have all of those too. So
yeah. Anyways,
why is divorce so expensive? It's worth it.
It's worth it. That's right. Oh my gosh. What's the most important, impressive thing you know how to do other than being a badass?
Oh, I'm not a
Yes, you are.
I'm a mere shadow of a badass.
Uh,
Probably the two most impressive things that I've done in my life is I have two
beautiful daughters
who have great careers. They're level-headed. They're going to do fine. I didn't have a lot of problems with them growing up, maybe because dad carried a gun all the time. But they're probably, while they are my two greatest achievements ever.
Well, you know what? Those girls of yours, I mean, I've always loved the stories over the years on how they've matured and their traits. It goes to show you it's not, you haven't been able to be right there with them all along. But what's really cool is their DNA definitely goes to show you it's the DNA because
well,
they are your children.
Well, as my youngest daughter, for the longest time, I thought she's so me on the inside that there's times that we're together, we'll start cutting up, and people go, wow, it's like you having a fight with yourself, except the voice is different. Because she's so like me on the inside, and she's funny because I used to say she's my wild child. My first one is Miss Safety Council. Oh no, Dad, we don't want to do that. That could be dangerous. The number 2 kid, she just wanted to ride Harleys. She wanted to fly in helicopters. She wanted to go shooting, and she's a very good shot. And I told a friend of mine years ago, I said, she's either going to end up being like Miss Stripper or the first female sergeant for LAPD SWAT. Well, thank God, neither one of those, but she's now a forensic tech for the Oregon State Medical Examiner's Office. She does something that and she does something I don't do. I mean, I've been to autopsies, and I don't want to do that for a living, making canoes out of people. But she says, Dad, it's like being a detective. I find out what caused this person's death,
That's
and
awesome.
that's great. And my other daughter she's a licensed child counselor in the state of Oregon, and so she's helping kids out. So they've just turned out great. I can't complain.
No, not at all. Not at all. What's the most courageous thing you've ever done?
Oh God,
I know, and you're like, I'm not tooting my own horn, but come
I
on.
I don't. Yeah, I've gotten. I don't necessarily look at stuff as that I've done over the years as being courageous. I look at it doing part of my job. I mean, I don't I don't look at it that way. I mean, you just don't. I mean, I
Well,
I
well, well, Lenny, on behalf of all your friends on Facebook, me being a whatever, we just love you on Facebook. We are blessed to have you as our friend. You're just so loved, and I even have a friend Tim that follows you, and you guys have become good friends.
oh yeah,
Keep them in line. But I'm just the courageous thing is that you really are there for your friends, and I mean, you pick up the phone when I call. I mean, you just mean the world to me, and I want this forever piece to always be in remembrance of that, because you are. I just don't like seeing people don't get acknowledged while they're here. I don't want to be at your funeral saying what a good guy and how much I love you.
I don't
I
want to
want,
be.
yeah. So what I'm saying is, I want to be here and tell you how much you are loved, and and how much value, and people don't realize people behind, you know, Blue Lives Matter. I mean, people don't know how much you've sacrificed not being with your children, your friends, your family, how many people care about you, and the impact you've had as a whole. People don't understand. You've taken oaths since military, and you have just given and given and given and given. And it's just I just want to thank you for the bottom of my heart to the sliver, just the little sliver I've had in your life, and just being able to see your post and being here means the world to me.
Well, that's very sweet of you to say. Now if
I-
everybody listening would send $9.95 to Lenny, no,
Hey,
you
you
get
never know.
you get too damn emotional. So there.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, I've gotten better though. Come on, I have,
but
right?
yeah,
I, I really
a
have.
little better. Much
But
it.
people really don't realize that I am an introvert. I am pretty shy in person at first. Am I not? I mean, I'm outside the box, and people don't understand that.
Yeah,
Like,
and
I keep a lot inside, and I
I,
get,
you just I keep a lot in I keep a lot inside too, and I grind on it. But then I just, like I said, thank God for a dark sense of humor over the years.
absolutely, absolutely. So, what's the most spontaneous thing you've ever done?
Oh my God.
Yeah, we're almost done here, so I want to get some juice and some fun out of you.
Spontaneous thing I ever did.
It's gonna be good.
Oh, it's so hard. I've done some really silly stuff in my life. I don't know how spontaneous.
Well, I mean, I remember back in the day and stuff. You're like, I think I'm going to take a drive. I think I'm going to ride the Harley for a little bit. And then what? You ended like 10 hours away from the house. I mean, you
Oh,
do it. Stuff like
done
that.
done stuff like that. That's just therapy. It's like
Yeah.
I'm I'm gonna get on the bike and I'm gonna go, turn my head sideways, let the wind blow through and blow all the crap out. And I I've done stuff like that. I've, taken off and gone, hey, I'm just gonna go, tomorrow I'm gonna go to the airport and go see my kids or something.
Yeah.
Those are things that I've done before. I mean,
Yeah.
I've gone overseas in like with about 72 hours notice.
Yes, you have done that. You're like, hey, I'll talk to you Tuesday. And I'm like, "Oh, where are you?" You're like, well, I kind of left the country. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
you're gonna have to call me by Skype because I'm in Jordan or somewhere. But
Yeah.
I've done that kind of thing. But
Yep. That's true too.
I don't. I'm not all that. You know.
You're fun. You're fun. We didn't even get talk about scuba diving. Like nobody knows. Like he was a certified scuba instructor, and I always thought I'd go to Vegas and get certified by you. And unfortunately, you hung the hat on that one.
Well, with the new company, I got too busy and with
Yeah.
to do, and I still scuba. I took a break for about a year and a half because of my hip, but now that I've got the Steve Austin $6 million man starter set hip, titanium hip, I'm good, but I just didn't have time to do instructing anymore.
Gotcha. So what makes a person beautiful to you?
What they're really like inside. I mean, you can be this you know drop dead 12 and a half gorgeous person and be the most evil rotten person on the inside, and it's really how people treat their friends and their family, and how they deal with others.
Well, that's all the things I can say about you and then some
Yeah.
because um you just I just remember always being real sarcastic with you and you just know how sassy I am and you give it back to me and I just thank you for just really seeing my heart and knowing who I am.
Well,
And
I'm not going to fight. I'm not going into a fight and not defend myself. So
I was I love that. Let's see. What other fun stuff I want to get in here? Okay. Okay, so this one, personality trait that has gotten you in the most trouble.
oh Lord, uh, it used to be my really dial up the Davis, Scottish Welsh based humor or anger. I could go like that quick. Um, and I've matured, and I'm just a mere shell of myself. I still get angry, but I get angry and I get revenge. No, but no, I think that again, I think probably that's gotten me in the most trouble was that. Sometimes it was trying to be, too fit. My sense of humor sometimes gets me in trouble, but some people didn't see that funny. Uh,
I was
I'm still the guy that laughs at the YouTube videos when the guy steps on a rake and hits himself in the head. I'm sorry, idiot.
well, speaking of jokes, what's the funniest joke you know by heart?
Oh, geez, what are
Come
you,
on.
stand-up comedian? Come on.
Yeah, I'm starting to have some comedians on my show, so come on. Come
Wow.
on. It's live, love, laugh out loud with me. Come
Yeah,
on.
but the joke I know by heart. I couldn't even say most of the jokes on the air. So
Come
let's
on. It's at the end of the show. Who's watching? I mean, we got a few people watching,
well
but which
for
by the way, if you guys have any questions for Lenny, you better ask soon because we're wrapping this up here in about 6 minutes.
6 minutes.
Yeah.
Yahoo! No, yeah, I don't know. It's just I just don't. I mean, I see a lot of things funny. My taste in comedians run everywhere from, hate to say it, Bill Cosby was one of I thought before he was drugging everybody, became a drug rep. A
Yeah.
brilliant mind. I love Sam Kinison. The guy was the most irreverent, just right in your face. This is what this is the way it is, and I kind of like that.
And I love George Carlin too. I bet you did
Oh
too.
God, yeah,
He's like the
Carlin was, and then if you go back and look, I mean, this is how I guess eclectic it is, but you go back, like I go back to like the Rat Pack days and those kind of, those guys. They were all in their shows. They were always, always funny. You look back at, I mean, God, probably my idol is Mel Brooks, the most irreverent individual I have ever seen. I was lucky a couple of years ago to see him live here in Las Vegas, and he did this. He's just, and he was 90 or 91 then, and the guy is just rapier sharp. And he told a joke, and he says, yeah, he says, when I first got back from the military, I decided I wanted to be a comedian, and everybody had to go to the Borscht Belt. And so you don't show up there as a comedian, you show up there and you become a busboy. And he says, I ended up being the sour cream and the butter guy. And he says, they were always calling for sour cream, all these Jews eating all this sour cream and butter. And he says, sour cream and butter killed more Jews than the Nazis ever thought about. And I come from him, that was just this guy, he's just amazing. He's just an amazing guy. And of course, now we are way
Political.
uptight for Blazing Saddles now. But what a great piece of comedy genius that he and a guy named Richard Pryor wrote. Gee, why would that be a bad thing?
Yeah. I know. I love comedy. Comedies. I mean, I think that's how I've gotten out of the shit that I've been through my life. I mean, I got to laugh my way. And I've been through some stuff that we can't even believe, Lenny.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, so even if I tell a joke about it, people will be like, yeah, that didn't really happen. Again, it's like people forget that when somebody's telling the truth and it sounds funny, they're telling you the freaking truth. That's what Cosby did. He was being funny by telling us the freaking truth. We didn't just notice that he was telling us the truth. Well, that's what's sad on us, but that's what comedians use. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And my sister-in-law said, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was waiting.
She said, I grew up with Sam and strolled the strip bars with him. I could tell you some stories. Jules.
I tell you, I was so sad. I never saw Sam live, and he was going to be. I got tickets for him to see him in Laughlin, Nevada, and I was ready to. I got off work early. I was ready to leave, and I turned on I was in the car getting ready to drive to Laughlin, about an hour and a half away, and on the radio came the notification that he had been killed in a car wreck going to that gig. And I just wish I'd got to see him live just one time.
Aww. Well, my sister-in-law, she grew up in California. She was a cheerleader for, I forget what, she was famous cheerleader and all sorts of stuff. But so she's got stories. I'm gonna have her on the show sometime. You'll have to watch.
I'd like to sit down and have a cocktail or 3 or 4 with her. Because
Julie, we'll have to go down to Vegas and go see Lenny and go hang out at his pool. He's been promised me to come over to his pool for years. One of these days, I'm going to be there in that pool.
Well, it's a little chilly right now. I better bring your wetsuit. But
I know, but over the years, it's like, come on over. I said, Lenny, you just leave me on the back deck there. Let me slide in and go to the bathroom every now and then. I'm going to live by the pool, and you can go and visit me because I love swimming.
I've got a poolside bar.
I know.
And a 38cc gas-powered blender out there for exactly that. So,
I know. And one of these days, I'm going to be there because I just have to do that. It's on my list. Julie says his dad was a preacher. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, he was a preacher for a while, too.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. Lenny, the fact that you had no idea, you probably didn't even know I had a podcast, right? Like you're so busy, you don't have time to like keep an eye on your friends, but I don't even think you knew I had a podcast, right?
I think I had one. I hadn't had, I will admit I hadn't had time to tune in just because
you're busy.
A little busy.
Yes. So again, it goes to show what friendship is. I mean, I asked you if you'd be on my show and you're like, yes. And I'm like, shit. I mean, like, I don't know how, we're going to talk about live, love, laugh out loud with Lynn. It's like, I really didn't know how to prepare or whatever questions or whatever. But because I just have it lighthearted here, but again, you're just an amazing guy. And I'm blessed to call you my friend. And somebody that I love very much. And so for you to be here and trust me and not even know, because we had some technical difficulties, we didn't even go through any questions or anything. It just goes to show you that you went on a limb for me. That you are the guy that has been on many podcasts, many famous podcasts. I mean, like like you've talked really technical stuff and political stuff and this and that. And the fact that you just said, oh, I got to be there for Lynn's show, that means the world to me. I love you so much for that. I can't even tell you.
Yeah, that's fine. You know, I had a long time ago, you know, you're talking about, you know, no, we didn't have any prep time, which we didn't. But, you know, a lot of it is like undercover stuff. And years and years ago, they did an article in a SWAT magazine on me and about what I did at that time, you know, chasing drug smugglers in the desert and doing all that. And the guy who wrote it, Michael D. Gregorio, he had a friend of his, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to bring a friend of mine, Pete, with me." And I said, "Sure, bring him up." So Pete comes along, and I realize it's this. He's that the Pete he's got coming up is this up and coming actor named Peter Berg, who I've seen in Shock. He got his first movie, I think, in Shocker, and he was on Chicago Hope, and now he's a director, and you know he's done so many great movies. And he said something, and I've never forgotten. We'd been 2 days out in the desert, so we're sitting at my house out on my deck, and we're barbecuing steaks and having beers, and I said, you know, Pete, I said I couldn't. You know, I was kind of in awe of. I still am, and I've met several actors, but I'm always, you know, like, hey, you know, I couldn't do what you do. And he goes, Lenny, he says, you do undercover work. He says, like it or not, you're an improvisational actor, and you're a natural at it, because he says, you know, I try to get you know, win an Emmy or an Academy Award. You're trying to stay alive while you're dealing with somebody. And I go, I always kind of took that to heart. And I always took that as a great little compliment about kind of what guys that do what I do and have done what I've done and are still doing what I used to do. You know, that's kind of what we are.
Well, I'd love to have you back in the show where we talk about some of the celebrities and some of the fun stuff if you're
Oh,
willing to do that sometime. Will
yeah,
you?
I might. You might have to do an afternoon cast so I can, you know, have a more keen.
Oh, yeah. Dude, you might even have to be in, not everybody knows this yet, but I'm gonna actually have another show with this guy, and it's gonna be a real and raw kind of
Oh,
show. And that's where we don't know where we're going with that, but it's gonna be pretty damn good.
uh,
So,
uh,
but yeah, I'm gonna count you in, and you guys will never get Lenny's address in Las Vegas, but when I go there, you'll know where I'll be hanging. Lenny, I love you so much. God bless you. Have
I
a
love.
great holiday. I love you so much. And everybody, thanks for watching this. It'll be on YouTube as well. And I'll have to start telling people like and subscribe. Lenny, make sure you share this on your wall. And I
I
love
will.
you.
I love you too. You take care.
Okay. Yeah, you stay right there. And thank you everybody for watching. And I will be back tomorrow with the gold digger. Our gold. That, don't worry. But I have a good show for you
I'm
tomorrow
never
too.
gonna be on.
What's that?
You said a gold digger, my
No.
ex-wife.
We're gonna cut this out.
Sorry. It was only below the hard deck a few seconds.
All right, you guys, hold on. Lenny, stay right there.